Saludos a toda la afición de Lucha Libre Online. Este que les habla es Michael Morales Torres, integrante del equipo de Lucha Libre Online, en directo desde mi carro porque estamos en un día bastante ajetreado en el mundo de los impuestos. Como ustedes saben, soy abogado y en mi vida diaria hay mucho ajetreo, pero eso es parte de la vida. Tenemos directamente de Impact Wrestling, un hombre que ha pasado por las filas de WWE en su momento dado, de AEW en su momento dado, y ahora es parte del roster de Impact. John Skyler llega por primera vez aquí a Lucha Libre Online. John, man, it is an absolute privilege to have you as our guest. How are things going on your end?
Everything's great, man. I'm just gearing up for Bound for Glory this Saturday. I'm so excited to be a part of Bound for Glory live from Las Vegas, Sam's Town Live. Plenty of great tickets still available on Ticketmaster.com. And, you know, the lights are going to be on bright. This is the big show of the year for Impact Wrestling. And I'm excited to walk into Las Vegas with a chip on my shoulder. And I'm looking forward even more so to leaving Las Vegas as the brand new and first digital media Impact Wrestling digital media champion.
John, I also want to translate that to Spanish because that was actually my first topic for today. Bound for Glory es el sábado 23 de octubre, este sábado 23 de octubre, directamente desde Las Vegas, boletos disponibles todavía en Ticketmaster. Y John Skyler tiene un compromiso sumamente importante en donde va a estar disputándose el campeón de Digital Media de Impact Wrestling para coronarse por primera vez. Before we go to your backstory, let's talk about what's hot, and that's Bound for Glory, the most important event in wrestling of the year. Is happening this Saturday from Las Vegas. How do you feel to be a part of Bound for Glory and to actually have the opportunity to pursue a new title such as the Digital Media Championship?
It's an exciting time. It's not only an exciting time for me, it's an exciting time for Impact Wrestling. A lot of surprises, a lot of people coming that you never would have thought would be in Impact Wrestling. And so it's just an exciting time. You talk about the forbidden door. You know, you never know who's going to show up from week to week at Impact Wrestling. You never know who's going to show up at Bound for Glory. It's a stacked card. You know, Deonna Purrazzo and Mickie James will be fighting for the Knockouts title. They got the Call Your Shot Gauntlet Battle Royal. That'll be unpredictable and wild, I'm sure. You know, you have the X Division title will be decided in a triple threat match. And then you look at the main event with Christian Cage defending against Josh Alexander. You know, it's just a stacked card. And for me, you know, I have the chance to make history, become the very first digital media champion. And that's not lost on me because 6 years ago, I was in the dark match at Bound for Glory in a tryout and was told I was not a good fit for Impact Wrestling. And, you know, a lot of things have changed since then. And here I am. So it's not lost on me to now be a part of Countdown to Glory right before Bound for Glory. It's something I'm very proud of. I'm very excited about. And for me, it's going to be validation because I'm going to turn no's into yeses. That's kind of been the story of my career is every time I'm told no, I turned it into a yes. And this Saturday is going to be no different.
Let's talk about that. You got rejected on 6 years ago. Sorry. You were told no. You evolve in your career and you are the wrestler you are today. You've been on multiple locker rooms, WWE, AEW, I believe New Japan Pro Wrestling as well, among many, many other in the independent circuit all around the world. What's different from Impact Wrestling compared to the other places you've been before?
For me, Impact Wrestling was an opportunity. And yes, I was told no in 2015, but I've been told no by pretty much every major company out there. At one point or another has told me no, or no, not right now. For Impact Wrestling, it was different because after talking to Scott D'Amore and a couple of others, I realized there was a lot of opportunity on the table for me to kind of break the mold and break the perception of who John Skyler is. Because I feel like for the last 13 years, when people saw my name, whether it be on the internet or on Twitter or in a magazine or anywhere on paper, they look at the name John Skyler and they only see me going so far, especially wrestling on television. And I feel like there was maybe an unfair perception of who I am and what I'm capable of that was put out there. And my opportunity at Impact Wrestling was great because it was a chance for me to break the mold, break the perception, and create a new perception of exactly what I'm capable of, what I can do if I'm given 15 minutes to wrestle Laredo Kid. And you know, just down and dirty. I'm a pro wrestler at heart, and I love being in the ring. You know, D'Lo Brown likes to say I'm built on fundamentals, and I think that that's the perfect way to describe me. is I love nothing more than going out there, being in that ring in front of those people, and then leaving drenched in sweat, blood, maybe some tears, and knowing that I just put on a pro wrestling match. That's what really makes me live life, man. And I knew that going to Impact Wrestling was going to give me that opportunity. And so far, I haven't been wrong. And there's been multiple things that have reassured me that I made the right choice in choosing Impact Wrestling. And I'm thankful Impact Wrestling chose me.
Wrestling is a language itself, but you face Laredo Kid, Mexican, Latin American. His language is Spanish. His style is different. They enter to the lockup from a different side, but you made it work. And with him, you did magic. But let's talk about that, the barriers, the cultural barriers facing people like Laredo, facing people in Japan. What are the biggest challenges you face inside the wrestling industry, either culturally, either language barrier or physical barriers? Like, what are the toughest things John Skyler has to face inside the wrestling industry itself?
Me personally, just like you said, wrestling is a universal language. So there's a lot of times I've gone and wrestled in China, Hong Kong, Singapore, where the wrestlers there they literally don't know the words that are coming out of my mouth. They don't know what I'm saying. But when you get out there, you wrestle, and it's amazing what you can put together and the magic that you can create in the ring, because the ring is kind of our canvas. That's where we create our art, right? So the language barrier can always be a little bit tricky. Sometimes traveling conditions aren't the best. Living conditions sometimes overseas aren't the best. And then for me, just really trying to focus on staying healthy and injury free, especially after the last year that I had, where I had to have my ACL, MCL, PCL repaired because I had a catastrophic knee injury wrestling in 2020, having that knee surgery. That was a big challenge, a big obstacle for me to overcome, but I overcame it. And if that's the worst that happens to me in my career, I can say I've done it and I'm a better man for it. And that's the thing that I really wanted to zone in on for 2021, was making it my breakout year. And I feel like thus far I've done so, but I want people to not lose sight of the fact that, 2021 was my breakout year, but it's going to pale in comparison to what happens in 2022, 2023, 2024, so on and so forth. I've only scratched the surface. I've been wrestling for 13 years, but I've shown people this much of what I can do. And I'm looking forward to proving more people wrong and showing the world what kind of wrestler I am.
Summer 2020, AEW, you are an important match of your career. And you just mentioned it, you suffered the worst injury an athlete can suffer at this point, in the worst possible moment. How do you find the physical and mental strength to came back from that adversity, to reinvent yourself and to earn the place you've earned inside the wrestling industry right now?
It was definitely a challenge, especially with the state of the world being what it was at the time. There weren't a lot of people I could turn to. There weren't exactly a lot of things I could do. So really, I just tried to focus on doing physical therapy twice a week. Yeah, was it mentally tough and taxing and exhausting? Absolutely, 100%. But you can either take the time and you can kind of sulk and be sad and depressed about it, or you can go out there and make a change. And by going and doing the physical therapy, coming back in 7 months instead of 8, just those little short-term goals are what got me through that time period. Because, injuries happen in wrestling. Injuries happen every week, every night. But, you always think that you're going to kind of come out of the other side unscathed until it happens to you. And it was definitely the hardest challenge I've had to face thus far in my career. But again, now I'm through it. And, they say the grass is greener on the other side. Well, now I'm on the other side, and I feel like the grass so far has been greener, and I'm looking forward to even greener pastures moving forward.
John, you at one point of your life, you play football or soccer, as people call it in the States. You had a future in that sport, but you instead decided to pursue a career in wrestling. Why did you change pathways, knowing that there's a lot of money in soccer as well, but there's good money in wrestling? Why wrestling instead of football?
So I, played soccer from the time I was from the time I can remember. And I had a lot of offers to play in college, but I knew deep down inside I always wanted to be a pro wrestler. I just didn't know at the time in 2008 where to get started, who to get trained by, where to go, how do I become a pro wrestler? Like I didn't know these answers. And at the same time, I was also in college getting a teaching degree at the University of South Carolina. And, you know, I was very much like, now's the time, if I'm going to try pro wrestling, to try it. And so I ended up finding a school in South Carolina to get started. I got trained. And then 3 months later, you know, I picked up on everything so quickly. 3 months later, I was having my first match. And was I ready? Was I prepared? Well, let me answer the first part first. Was I ready? Probably not. But was I prepared? Yes, I was. You know, I you know, have never looked back since. But I knew deep down inside that I wanted to be a pro wrestler because that was, even when I was playing soccer, that was kind of the dream that I had in the back of my mind was, you know, I look back at the moments that captivated me as a kid, and a lot of them were very much pro wrestling based. And that's why I chose that path.
So you choose to become a pro wrestler. You, as far as I know, you are from the Carolinas, a place that is rich in pro wrestling itself. Does that play a huge factor in your decision?
I'm sure it does, because I had the opportunity to see a lot of live wrestling as a kid. I got to see guys like Arn Anderson, like Bobby Eaton, you know, and, you know, other guys like Eddie Guerrero and Chris Jericho. And I got to see a lot of these guys that became heroes of mine live and in person. And, you know, the Carolinas were a hotbed there for a while for World Championship Wrestling. So getting to see those events live as a kid were really, they kind of molded my mind into, man, this is awesome to see live and in person. And I just remember how some of those guys made me feel sitting on that other side of the guardrail as a kid. And if I could change somebody's life in that way, like they changed mine, if I could help, you know, mold the mind of a youngster or captivate them the way I was captivated as a kid, you know, you can't really ask for much more than that. You can't put a price tag on stuff like that. You know, I definitely think probably coming up in the Carolinas definitely had something to do with my career path. But you also have to look at the talent that's come out of the Carolinas since then. You know, there's been a lot of guys that I started and wrestled on independence with in front of 20 people in the back of a bar. And a lot of them are wrestling across our great industry now. And we're all in different wrestling companies. We're all making a living doing this. And I think that's the cool part of the journey of what we do. It's not always the destination, right? It's the journey.
John, you've wrestled in front of no audience in the middle of the pandemic. You're wrestling in front of 20 people, in front of 100 people, in front of thousands of people as well. Does the quantity of people inside a building affect your performance?
The quantity, no, not necessarily, because I was just having this conversation with somebody the other day. I would rather wrestle in front of 300 people if they're going to be loud and, you know, they have that thunderous kind of noise coming along with them, as opposed to wrestling in front of 60,000 people that are quiet. You know, that's just who I am. And other people might dispute that. Others might think differently, but quantity, not necessarily, no, if they're loud, you know, and that's the big thing is, you know, I love wrestling in front of loud wrestling fans.
I wanted to say something in Spanish. Bound for Glory, lo dijimos al inicio, es este sábado 23 de octubre, disponible en Fight TV, disponible en todos sus servidores de pay-per-view desde las 8 de la noche. No se lo pueden perder. John Skyler va a estar en acción Christian Cage, Josh Alexander, entre muchísimas otras superestrellas, Mickey James, de una Purazzo, y seguimos con la lista, no vamos a acabar, hasta Heath va a estar por ahí en acción, pero es a las 8 de la noche a través de Fight TV, no se lo pueden perder por nada del mundo. Man, Bound for Glory, huge event. You have a huge opportunity in your hands right now with the new title, as we were talking prior. What does Bound for Glory, or actually having the opportunity to wrestle in the main card of Bound for Glory, mean for you? Like you mentioned that 6 years ago, the story was not the same. You were on a dark match. You were said no. This time, as you were mentioning, you are on the main card. For you, not as John Skyler, the wrestler, but as John, the human, how important this opportunity is for you?
It's the most important opportunity in my career, and I'm not just saying that to try to sell a pay-per-view or a pre-show or you know, Impact Plus subscriptions. I'm saying that because it's the truth. For 13 years, I've traveled the world, and everywhere I've been, for the most part, told me no, that I wouldn't make it, that I was not, what they were looking for. So for me, this Saturday is validation, and I know I'm gonna have my work cut out for me. Because it's an interesting dichotomy of contenders. Everybody brings something different to the table. Falaba, Crazy Steve, myself, Jordan Grace, the 4 that we know, and then there's going to be 2 more that we don't know that we find out very soon. It's almost impossible to prepare for a match like that, but I know I'm prepared, and I'm going to sit back. I'm going to let others make the mistake. I'm going to let the others kind of let the lights and the eyes and everything else that goes along with the prestige of Bound for Glory. I'm gonna let them get the nerves, and let their nerves get to the better of them. And I'm gonna sit back and wait for somebody to make a mistake, and I'm gonna guarantee that I'm gonna leave the future and first Impact digital media champion. And it's something I'm very excited about. Like I said, it's validation. I'm turning no's into yeses everywhere I go, and I'm happy to be a part of Impact Wrestling, and I'm happy and excited to see who shows up and what happens this Saturday at Bound for Glory.
Man, I love the mix of the roster of Impact Wrestling. It complements itself, having as well people from the Forbidden Door arriving, people like Christian Cage, people from the Bullet Club, for example. Everyone has a role. Everyone is doing something. It kind of reminds me of WWF's All Attitude era, because every single story has a purpose. Every single second on TV has a purpose. It's not just throwing 2 random guys to do something, but actually everything has a meaning. And analyzing the roster, you have a great mix from veterans, young, hungry talent, young veterans as well, like yourself. What are your thoughts on Impact Wrestling's roster compared to the rest of the wrestling industry itself? Because you got guys like I was mentioning before, guys and gals that are killing it, and that can be easily a main event player in any other single company, but they all choose to be on Impact Wrestling. What are your thoughts on the roster?
The roster is one of the most stacked, I think. If it's flying under the radar, it shouldn't, but it's one of the most stacked rosters that you're going to find anywhere. You've got veterans like Eddie Edwards, like Christian Cage, guys I hope to share the ring with one day, and have matches with. And then there's also guys like other guys, for example, that I would love to wrestle: Chris Sabin, Petey Williams, X Division veterans. And then you got newcomers like Chris Bay, that are, people are just finding out about him. There's all these, great talents like Rich Swann, Willie Mack. Everybody brings something different to the table. And we just saw Knockouts Knockdown, where we saw an incredible card of what the Knockouts are capable of doing. There were so many exciting matches there, and it's just so cool to be a part of this team and this roster and see the Forbidden Door open and see guys like Frankie Kazarian and Christopher Daniels pop up as well. It's such a cool time, not only to be a wrestling fan, but to be a part of our industry. And I'm very excited about the matchups and the possibilities up and down the roster, especially with the Digital Media Championship now, being that social media is so important to our industry. And a lot of people watch wrestling now strictly through social media, digital media. It'll be more eyes on Impact Wrestling. It'll be more eyes on the actual Digital Media Championship than there's ever been before. And with the possibilities of men and women contending for the title, it's a very exciting time. Just looking at the possibilities, and and you can never count out the Forbidden Door either. So who's going to show up? You never know. And I think there's a lot of surprises in store for this Saturday at Bound for Glory. Surprises that I'm excited to find out about, because I haven't been told anything. And I'm sure that the wrestling world, it'll be the thing everybody's talking about come Sunday.
I also want to say something else in Spanish. Impact Wrestling tiene toda su programación semanal todos los jueves, every single Thursday a las 8 de la noche, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, disponible a través de Access TV y a través del canal de YouTube de Impact Wrestling, con una suscripción mensual sumamente económica, y créanme, vale la pena cada segundo, porque pueden interactuar con cada uno de los talentos. La mercancía, como la t-shirt que tiene de Bound for Glory, pues está John Skyler, está disponible en shopimpact.com, shopimpact.com. Ahí pueden encontrar toda la mercancía también disponible. También tienen su tienda de eBay disponible a través de ebay.com. Los puedes encontrar para memorabilia y cosas firmadas, bates con alambre de púa de Sami Callihan, por darle un ejemplo, fotos firmadas de John Skyler. Simplemente búsquenlos como Impact Wrestling a través de eBay. Bound for Glory este sábado a las 8 de la noche, hora del este. a través de Fight TV, Impact Plus, la aplicación para todos los pay-per-views mensuales desde simplemente $8 al mes. Vale la pena cada centavo de su dinero. Impact está haciendo cosas increíbles, así que respalden su producto y esta excelente empresa con una excelente alternativa para todo el mundo. John, before we go to our last question, I wanted to thank you, thank Ross and Impact Wrestling as well for your time and opportunity. Last but not least, what message can you send to all the Latin American fans in Mexico, Chile, Argentina, Panama, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, among many other countries, so they can tune in, not only Bound for Glory this Saturday, 23, at 8 p.m. on Fight TV and Impact Plus, but man, every single Thursday, to watch every single Thursday, BTI, Impact Wrestling. What message can you send to all the fans so they can tune in Impact Wrestling?
Well, to all the Impact Wrestling fans around the world, I want to say thank you, gracias. Thank you for tuning in every Thursday night. Impact Wrestling on Access TV here in the States. And make sure you go out of your way to find Impact Wrestling wherever you are, whatever part of the world you're in. Impact Wrestling has a rich history. But right now, more than ever, it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time to be a fan of Impact Wrestling, and it's an exciting time to be a part of Impact Wrestling. And we thank everybody for their support, no matter where you're watching us from in the world. Gracias, thank you, and keep tuning in to Impact Wrestling.
Y este fue John Skyler directamente desde Impact Wrestling y Michael Morales Torres para Lucha Libre Online, la marca número 1 de Pro Wrestling y Combat Sports en español.